When police in Kent County, Michigan spoke with a 27-year-old Irene Whitehead, they thought they were talking to a grieving mother about her toddler's sudden death. But as investigators pressed her, they noticed inconsistencies in her story. The mask of a heartbroken parent was starting to slip. Then during the investigation, she made a stunning admission that not only confirmed their worst fears, but was like a single thread that was pulled, unraveled an entire tapestry of tragedy. It implicated her in a second secret murder, a cold case that had been buried for 4 years. By the time she was arrested on November 25th of 2025, detectives had a confession that would expose a hidden history of abuse. The story begins on September 3rd of 2025 in the small community of Cedar Springs, Michigan. First responders got a call about an unresponsive child at a home on South Allen Street. The child was 2-year-old Riley Whitehead. Despite their best efforts, Riley was pronounced dead at the scene. Her mother, Irene, initially told investigators that her daughter, who she said had a history of medical issues, had simply stopped breathing. On the surface, it looked like a devastating tragedy. An obituary described Riley as a very active toddler who loved playing with her siblings. Following her death, Irene Whitehead even started a GoFundMe online, writing, "She had been dealing with breathing issues since she was about 2 months old. She was admitted to Helen DeVos many times, but they couldn't figure out what caused it. This story of a chronically ill child seemed plausible. After all, medical records showed Riley had indeed been in and out of the hospital for multiple breathing episodes. But for investigators, the story felt like a puzzle when the final picture was supposed to be a sunny day. But all the individual pieces were dark and stormy. The initial cause of death was listed as indeterminate, yet the medical examiner pointed out that suffocation couldn't be ruled out. It was like a book with the last page ripped out. The story was incomplete, but the jagged edge suggested a violent end. As detectives from the Kent County Sheriff's Office dug deeper, they launched a meticulous, months-long investigation, even consulting with child abuse specialists. They uncovered disturbing online searches and private messages that paint a picture not of a grieving mother, but of someone at their breaking point. This call culminated in her arrest about 3 months after her daughter's death. Investigators wanted answers, but they had no idea just how much she was about to reveal. As the investigation intensified, detectives confronted Irene Whitehead with the evidence they had gathered. For a while, she maintained her story, but the pressure mounted. The detectives were patient and persistent, chipping away at her defense until the facade didn't just crack, it shattered like a mirror, reflecting a much darker truth than anyone was prepared to see. According to the court documents, when asked directly what made her kill Riley, Irene's response was chilling simple. "I couldn't take it anymore. Being a parent, hearing her screaming all the time." She reportedly admitted everything. She confessed to suffocating her 2-year-old daughter, even describing how she used a plastic bag over Riley's mouth until she stopped moving. It was the breakthrough investigators had been working toward for months, but this was not just an investigation into a single house fire. It was as if the suspect, after confessing, admitted she had also planted a bomb in the building next door, years earlier. As she spoke, detectives had a gut feeling the story wasn't over. They began to probe, asking about her other children, and that's when Irene allegedly told investigators that she had also killed her infant son years earlier. According to her report, she wrote and signed a horrifying statement. "I killed them." Suddenly, the focus of the investigation expanded. Detectives pulled the cold case file of Leo Whitehead, Irene's 2-month-old son who had died back in 2021. At the time, his death had been ruled natural. Irene had told medical staff that the infant had influenza, and with no evidence to suggest otherwise. The cause of death was officially listed as complications from parainfluenza and pneumonia. It was a tragedy, but not a crime. It was a closed case. Irene's shocking new statement changed everything. It was like a doctor realizing that symptoms they diagnosed as a common cold were actually masking a much more sinister hidden disease. The original ruling was based only on the symptoms presented, not the poison being secretly administered. She reportedly told investigators there was a number of similarities in the manner of both her children's death. With this new information, Sheriff Michelle Young announced that Leo's death was now being investigated as a homicide. The cold case was officially hot again. How could something like this have been missed? In 2021, authorities only had the mother's statements and the physical evidence at hand. There were no obvious outward signs of foul play, so the ruling was made based on the limited facts available. But a confession provides a new lens to view old evidence. It turns a tragic illness into a potential cover story. Sheriff LaJoy Young stated that her office was fully committed to pursuing justice for Leo, seeking charges pending further investigation. As investigators re-examined the past, a disturbing pattern began to emerge. It turned out there had been warning signs. A report from October of 2023, nearly a year before Riley's death, detailed a call that had made a firefighter deeply suspicious. First responders were called to the Whitehead home for the then 4-month-old Riley, who had turned gray and stopped breathing. Irene claimed she found the baby that way after leaving her in the crib. But for one firefighter on the scene, it was like a horrifying film he'd seen before. He told police that he had responded to the very same home about 18 months earlier for the death of an infant, the death of 2-month-old Leo. The circumstances felt eerily similar, an unsettling echo of a prior tragedy. His suspicion was so strong that he called police to the scene that day. Despite his gut feeling, an ER doctor at the Children's Hospital reported seeing nothing of concern, and the incident was not escalated further. It was like a single warning light flashing on a complex dashboard, alarming to the one person who saw it, but without a second alarm, the system's wide alert was never triggered. The investigation reportedly found that Irene had told investigators she had thought about killing her 2 other living children. Thankfully, those 2 children were unharmed and have been placed in the custody of their father while the investigation continues. The full truth of what happened to Riley and Leo Whitehead is still coming to light through the justice system. Cases like this are incredibly complex and reveal so much about the fractures in our society. If you want to understand the psychology and the investigation behind more cases like this one, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Irene Whitehead was arrested on November 25, 2025, 2 days before Thanksgiving. Body camera footage of her arrest shows her with a blank face, speaking only when prompted. A detective can be heard telling her they have warrants and that she's being lodged on 2 murder 1 charges for Riley and Leo. She was arraigned on December 1st of 2025. Informally charged with felony murder and first-degree child abuse in the death of her daughter Riley. A judge called the charges horrific and denied her bond, noting the proof of guilt was evident. As of late 2025, prosecutors are actively building their case for the murder of Leo Whitehead and have expressed their intent to seek charges. This case is a profound tragedy that raises difficult questions. It highlights the immense pressure on investigators and medical professionals to spot signs of abuse, which are often intentionally hidden. The confession may have unlocked a door, but it revealed a house of horrors, reminding everyone that sometimes the most dangerous place for a child can be their own home. For Riley and Leo, justice is now grinding forward. But for the family, the community, and the first responders involved, the echoes of this tragedy will linger for a long, long time.